Welcome to Friday Facts number 425, Behind the Legs, and I have a wonderful Mojo who's hidden behind the legs, or between the legs. Where are you, Mojo?
I'm just going to move swiftly along from that one.
Okay, good. So last week they announced, some new enemies coming to Space Age. Both the Stompers, the Strafers, also the Flying Dudes, and the little tentacle dudes. So many tentacles.
The Wrigglers?
So many tentacles. Yes. Okay. So,
Love a good tentacle.
I'm glad. Yep. Okay. Gonna move swiftly along. So, to do that, they had to add some optimizations, some quick optimizations. The one being, mainly around Spidertron legs, because if anybody's played with Spidertron, especially with an army of Spidertrons, they can definitely kill performance very quickly as soon as you start entering uneven terrain. Terrain that an engineer hasn't pre-visited, that still has cliffs and rocks and water and other icky nature stuff. If it's already been concreted, spiders are great. They don't mind at all. So they had to do a little bit of work. The biggest issue, which is probably just down to lazy and quick code implementation at the time, was when a spider leg moves to a new location, from where it is currently to trying to get to the center of this wonderful swirl, it scans in a 0.2 tile distance between each check. It looks for a new spot to put its leg and travels outwards in a spiral, which was 6,400 collision checks looking for where it can put its leg, which is a lot.
Just a few.
Yeah. And then
the funny thing is you can see an optimization straight away is where when it does the first check on a tile and it comes back and says it's water, it means all the other 24 within that tile probably don't matter.
Yes, very much so. And the same would happen less so with a cliff, but yeah. Sure, you need to have, slightly better or different checks when it comes to buildings and other things, but yeah, definitely water is one of those things where you're just like, well, we can rule out the whole tile straight away. Yeah. So they did a small improvement. The first trick for solving this is realize the scan precisions are very small, being 0.2 a tile. There are 5 tiles of 5 times this size. Most entities are at least 10 times this size. Therefore, the algorithm often checks the same tile or entity over and over. Instead, the algorithm finds a collision. It should immediately advance past the edge of a collision's bounding box. And remember, every collision's bounding box, we can potentially skip entire rows and columns. So, yeah, a much faster way of, it's water. I can't step there. Yeah, I think the top right one has, technically it's a water tile with a little bit of area that it could put a foot in. Just.
Yeah, just.
Yeah. So, yeah, that vastly sped things up. So it's now about 70 collision checks rather than, 6,000. And also a new scan pattern, which is going to be much more optimized. Yeah. Some of them still look like they're being checked more than once due to different paths, but hopefully they're being cached and moved forward. And then they teamed things up. So the second performance couple was every single Spidertron leg in a group was performing the exact same empty space search in roughly the same area. If each individual egg was conducting fewer collision checks, multiple legs would still duplicate this work. And the naturally raised question, can spider legs work together to perform fewer searches? The trick to making this work was realizing the algorithm scans outward from the center until the first empty space is found. That means if we find an empty position some tiles away from the search origin, we know that the inside square is completely blocked. If we mark this inner square as a search exclusion zone, put in a list, future leg searches can check that list and skip collision checks that fall within that zone. So again, caching the results and handing them off to the next leg. So
yeah, and allowing the next leg to not do the same thing twice.
Yeah,
the
pretty
thing
much.
To actually take away from that is that 6,400 checks are being done. Did I actually say that was for one leg or all the legs?
That's per leg per search.
Per leg?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's actually 6,400 by 8.
Yes. Well, it's potentially that much.
When the spider goes across water.
It's potentially that much.
Potentially.
If they find a spot to put their foot straight away, then you're fine. But, generally they don't. At least with natural water. This is why people have those blueprints, like the I don't know. Well, there's a name for it. The spider stepping stones. That's what they're called. Which are just like ground tiles, like one tile apart from one another. That's just enough that a spider could walk naturally across water without a problem, and spiders and other things can't. So, yes. The problem is I hate the look of them, and I'm just like pave the whole thing. Just be done with it. So, they had little hope for the caching idea to work. The implementation is very naive. Exclusion zone is only valid for one for. It says for tick. I'm assuming it's one tick. Only valid for the tick they are added. But to my surprise, little hack cut down a ton of time. A few more adjustments, a few other optimizations. Pentapods were now feasible and can be added to the expansion. I'm actually surprised they're only caching it for a tick.
Yeah, but it makes sense though. I mean, it's still significantly faster. It actually occurred to me that if you cache it too much, there's a potential that searching the cache costs more than just searching it in the first place.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes, that's true. But you've got 8 legs, and 8 legs are not going to be transferring with chance. 8 legs are not going to be moving all within the same tick. So I sort of expected them to be caching them for like 10 ticks. So you can cache the results for the next legs that we're going to follow. Because at the moment they're probably only caching it probably for the next leg, and then if you're then carrying like leg 1's data is then cached and dragged over to leg 2, and then if leg 2 does a search and then carries that cache forward to leg 3 with whatever leg 2 has added to this search exclusion zone, it makes sense. But then you're still carrying that cache data forward, so therefore you're carrying it for a longer time than just a tick. So it comes back to my original answer that, I expect it's being cached totally for 10 seconds or 10 ticks. Maybe. But then again, spider legs don't move that fast. Like, you're not getting all 8 moving within 8 ticks. They're just not that quick. So, I don't know. I'm hoping they did testing back and forth, A/B test, quick A/B test,
Oh, yeah.
What happens if we cache this for longer? Okay, it works out most of the time, some of the time, none of the time. Anyway, so then they moved on to a new walking algorithm because, of course, we've got 8 legs, which we've got an optimized for, but now we have 5 legs. The fighter's performance culprit.
So we've got to re-optimize.
Yeah, well, we've got to optimize our optimization, or at least modify it to make sure it works with a different number of appendages. Yes. So the final performance culprit we discussed involves the algorithm selects the spider legs that get moved. You'll see for the improvements made to the empty space algorithm, there was still a glaring inefficiency. Each leg, every leg, no matter if it was already moving or waiting on another neighbor, was searching the empty space every tick while Spidertron was walking, which is a giant waste of time. Yeah, each leg is assigned a score based on how far that leg needed to step, and only the leg with the highest score was chosen to move. If that leg was already busy, then the results are simply thrown away. So the leg's searching for a spot to move to, and then if the leg doesn't, the leg then does the search, and then if the leg doesn't need to move, we throw out that data and we go again.
Just do that search for no reason.
Yeah. So the results were wasted in many searches, but necessary to ensure that Spidertron always made progression towards its destination. Without this scoring system, legs needed to take a big step would often get stuck because one or both the neighboring legs were busy taking small repeated steps. What needed was an efficient way to ensure that every leg had an equal opportunity to move. And I think just this 2 paragraphs here is really... I play a lot of early access games. You do too, Mojo. And we see often that between the first implementation of a game and then like a year or 2 years later, you might see that, your PC might have got an upgrade, but then again, the game engine itself has had giant leaps and bounds in performance. And a lot of that is, stuff like we had something that worked, and it worked well, and it worked, the legs moved, but there was a lot of wasted CPU cycles, an awful lot of wasted CPU cycles.
Yeah. A lot of wasted CPU cycles.
Yeah. So the solution to this problem came months later when the pentapods were in early development. With the 5-legged pentapods were added, the old algorithm of scoring and moving legs was no longer adequate. Arundel wanted complete control. He sounds like a control freak with just that one statement, sentence, whatever, over the order in which legs moved. So it gave these alien creatures a unique and organic walking pattern, which I completely understand, yes. This gave me the excuse I needed to overhaul the Spidertron walking algorithm and implement the final major optimizations. How should the 5-legged creature walk? We don't have many examples on Earth, but Arundel still came up with a good design to maintain balanced stability. Pentapods step in a 5-pointed star pattern, which sort of makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas spiders step in a 1-2 pattern, which I'm not a fan of. I think that's the issue. We've got a demonstration coming up that shows the new walking pattern for the spiders.
A very controversial walking demonstration.
Yeah, I think it's down to...
Somewhat.
We'll get to it, but I think it's down to that there are only 2 steps for the spiders, like legs 1 and legs 2.
Yeah.
Whereas legs 1 through to 4 might be a better combination. Yeah. So pentapods, go 1 through to 5. After all legs of group 1 are finished stepping, legs of group 2 can start stepping at 3, then 4, then 5. Some pentapods, however, prefer to count backwards, which is going to be important. Yes. So to implement this, every leg on the Pentapod or Spidertron is assigned a number of walking group. When walking, 1 or more legs from the current walking group are selected to move. These selected legs search for a clear destination and begin to move there. No more wasted searches after all legs of the current walking group have finished stepping, or at least moved past some specific threshold. I won't be able to cover today. The process repeats for the next walking group. The new system significantly cuts down the number of collision checks while giving designers unprecedented control over spider and pentapod walking animations. Of these 3 large optimizations, several other smaller ones we don't have time for. Spidertrons are now far less taxing on UPS. In a save test designed to stress Spidertron mobility, I measured an average of, 53%, which means 2.1 times faster. So we should have more armies of spiders in Space Age.
Oh, yeah.
I like spiders.
Bigger armies, bigger spider chains.
Well, now you can... No, hang on. Now you can control them as a control group. So you have the new Spidertron remote, so you can group them together as a solid group and not have a case where the leader dies and then you end up with 20 spiders that you need to reattach to a new... Yeah, that was a nightmare. So yes, more spiders walking around doing things. All right, so new enemies and new features. With new enemies come new behaviors come new engine features. Now to discuss some design decisions that influence the Pentapod designs and the system changes we built to implement them. So, Pathfinder. So when they designed a new system, a new enemy, they didn't want your Gleba factories to be surrounded with walls because, we've done that enough. So we know...
Yeah, that's what we do right now.
Well, yeah, that, or you just, wipe them out entirely or turn them off because you ran out of UPS because you built too much factory. Yeah, there are options. But players must fight and fend off Pentapod attacks with raw firepower from the new rocket turret. So the rocket turret is going to be very, very important. And actually, I noticed something in a...
turret is the intention.
Yeah, I noticed something in the combat videos that we're going to get to in a little bit. Yeah. So to make this work, they need a new pathfinding system that supports gaps and produce paths that ignore obstacles. Luckily, I was able to extend the existing biter pathfinding system with new features. So currently, the current biter pathfinding system basically means if a chunk has water in it, they don't path on it. They ignore it entirely. Yeah. Or maybe it's the corners have water. If all the 4 corners have the water, or 2 corners have water, I don't know. It's pretty much...
Something like that.
If it has water, we ignore it. Because they can't path through the tile. So it just vastly cut down on biter pathfinding outright. So, with the changes... so when they first do a chunk level pathfinding, it's no longer sufficient to only recall the traversal piles that touch the chunk perimeter. That was right, yeah. So it had to... If all the edges of the tile weren't land chunks, it would be ignored.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was like a high-level optimization, and then as the biters traversed it, they would then do a secondary optimization. It was something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I
Like,
think it was
yeah.
like from 5 years ago or something now.
317. Yeah, like 2 years ago, probably. Yeah. So that was no longer good enough, so they needed to know a non-traversable tiles around the chunks perimeter need to record the distance to the nearest traversable tile of up to two components. We use this later information to connect multiple components between chunks. Distance between two tiles is calculated as a greater value of either delta X or delta Y. So we get a distance between two, well, over water or any other obstacle, so we can work out whether some of our biter friends can step over that. And I do notice this is in Narvis, where you shouldn't find pentapods. But maybe you do. Or other biter subspecies that can trip over water. Anyway, so,
Or travel underwater.
yes. So next, when performing these base tile level pathfinding, every node must be remembered if it's traversable, and always point back to the last known traversable tile. This allows the algorithm to scan deeper into untraversable areas, being water, walls, and other entities, to find paths where otherwise be impossible for biters to traverse. But they mentioned water, so I'm really hoping we get swimming biters. I'm really hoping for
Or
it.
it's a ruse for something completely different.
This is
Biters
true.
that can bypass walls.
That works for me too. At the moment, well, no, I still want swimming biters. At the moment, and the
Catapult biters.
I'm just going with frogs. Yeah, frogs, tadpoles, yeah.
Frog biters. There you go.
Something. But at the moment, well, you got to remember, you can't train a roach. And biters are very similar.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, well, you can. It just takes a very long time. So at the moment, if you have like a water coast, and they've even mentioned this in previous Friday Facts with the updates to the how the map is generated and everything else. They've designed it so you are going to use water as choke points, and you are going to use it as an artificial wall more often. But if you get a biter that evolves and can swim, then that means that all that area that you've gone, oh, well, there's a lake there, there's a choke point, I'm just going to ignore that whole area, is now something you can't ignore. Same goes for flying biters. They just go straight over the water without a care. I've played Factorio with flying biters. It vastly changes how you need to think about your defenses, which I fully support. And I really hope that the biters on Narvis evolve as you unlock new areas on new planets, and as you force the evolution up on those planets, then the Narvis biters start evolving and start pulling some of these new tricks that you've evolved from other planets. Yes. Yes.
I just got my head stuck on the idea of frog-based biters that you can then play Frogger with trains, alternating, make a defensible area with alternating trains running in alternating directions, and then you could have like biter Frogger with trains.
Okay, this is a very, very good idea. I like this idea. Well, there is the chainsaw defense. Chainsaw defense.
Another fun one.
Yeah, where you just have trains that just drive around the base at high speed, very, very high speed, long trains, and they don't do anything apart from drive around circles. That's all they do. And the idea is a biter walks across the path and is just dead by a train. And spitters can't hit the train because it's moving too fast. Because they basically just don't stop. Yeah. So they just walk through the trains and immediately gets squished. Yeah. So it means that, that's now a viable large-scale base defense against frog biters. Not so much flying biters. You still need something for flying biters. So, more to add. So notice the search some distance into untraversable terrain, always pointing back towards the last known traversable tile. A typical Pathfinder searches many more nodes than this illustration shows. Discontinuous pathfinding will be available via the modding API in 2.0, even though nothing in the base game currently makes use of it. So this makes me sad. I'm really hoping something makes use of it.
You know Rampant's going to make use of it.
Oh, I know there are things. I know there are mods that are going to make use of it, but I'm really hoping something's in base game. I really want something in base game. They're adding
Base game plus.
they're adding so many new planets, so many new features. I want to see new enemies, and just the same as we had the pentapods, which are very different from how the biters work currently. I want to see, well, more different enemies, but I also want to see different forms of attack. I want to see something that's completely out of left field, that you need to rethink how you've played the game up until now. Because that's what they've been designing every planet to do. They want you to rethink some major step. You know, we've got our lightning planet where we need to rethink how we get power. We also need to rethink how we get resources. I want to see that continue with the evolution of the friends as well. And they've done that with the pentapods. So we have spores in the air. So rather than having, and we cover this a little bit, so rather than having biters attack pollution or pentapods attack pollution, what they've done is they now have certain buildings on Gleba excrete a different type of pollution, which means there is now a different type of pollution available in the game. So Factorio 2...
This was actually one of the big hanging over questions was, does the spores work in conjunction with pollution?
And the short answer is no. No.
Yeah.
So Factorio 2 introduces pollution types. Mods can have different types of pollutions. Machines, planets, and spheres can spawn each configured or to emit or absorb different amounts of each pollution type. However, for performance reasons, which I really, really hate, only one pollution type can be enabled per surface. I really hope they fix that.
Which is sad.
I really hope...
You know, someone's going to mod it back in or something.
Well, it depends on whether they've just disabled it outright or whether they've left it open to be modded back in. Yeah,
that's the real question.
Really hope that they have done that. So on Gleba, some machines will make pollution, which doesn't happen on Gleba. While no, it's in here somewhere. Enemy units typically choose targets based on pollution. Some machines produce... No, okay, I can't find it. But yeah, it means that the image from last week where we had the planting areas, they're going to go attack the planting areas rather than the main base, because the main base...
are emitting yellow, not red.
Yeah, because the main base just doesn't emit any pollution that they care about. Which does mean that different machines, i.e., like an assembler, is going to... I don't know. It's going to... I wonder if it's recipe dependent. Because technically a different recipe is a different entity.
Well, I mean, we're going to say, it has absorption, emission rates, chart colors, and all that stuff. Does that mean each machine needs a specifically named type of pollution for each, so it can do the different results on different planets depending on what's enabled?
Yeah, I would assume like an assembler makes like 90% pollution on Narvis, and on Gleba it makes 10% of spores. Yeah.
Yeah, or it has an entry for pollution and then an entry for spores specifically.
Yeah, and if you're on a planet that has spores only, then it only reads the spore tab when it doesn't doesn't read the pollution table. Yeah. But also
it can't emit any pollution.
Yeah.
On moldy planet.
Yeah. So redesign.
The other thing is, it also opens the door for a third planet having a different type of pollution again. I've actually been trying to think. Have we actually seen pollution on Vulcanus?
No, we haven't.
Vulcanus.
No, we haven't. We haven't.
No, we haven't.
We haven't. Like it's a planet covered in sulfur, right?
Yeah.
So pollution's going to be really high to start with. Just like they mentioned, Gleba is, the CO2 would normally just get soaked into the planet and then just deal with it. So pollution's not an issue on Gleba, but instead these spores are, because that's what the pentapods eat. So this...
Pentapods like snacks.
Yeah, well, it's understandable. Everybody likes snacks. So it's definitely understandable on why they don't care about pollution, but it means Vulcanus, same story. They don't care about, CO2. Because the planet has sulfur and all sorts of things just locally everywhere. So the CO2 is just going to blend in with everything else, along with raw lava and so on and so forth. So it has to be some type of other pollution-esque thing that they actually care about.
Yeah.
Water?
Water? Ah.
You know?
It's such a scarce resource that water attracts
Friends like
volcano biters.
friends like to be wet. Yep. Um,
Or ice. They just want a pool party.
yeah, understandable. It's hot.
Yeah.
I know how they feel in summer. Yep. All right. So redesign legs. Finally, Pentapod's legs need rework. Being an organic creature, we want to minimize the amount each leg stretched and squished. Instead, emphasizing on bending at the knee and the hip. This makes the creature look and feel more believable and less robotic. Even with legs update their sprites based on the orientation relative to the body. It was difficult to get right due to Factorio's perspective and weird angles, but Feargal and Arendelle did an amazing job. The final effect makes these creatures feel more real by keeping the lighting angle consistent and accounting for the player's perspective at all times. And this one little animation is just creepy. It's
Well, maybe when it stretches.
just
Like, mirror,
it's
mirror,
it's the
mirror.
you done? It's I know it's for demonstration purposes only, but it's just grabbing a leg and just moving all over the place. Just it's just creepy. It's creepy. It reminds me of a visit with a physio or something. Yeah. So Stomper and Strover eggs attempt to flex the hips and knees before stretching. Sprites change based on orientation. So yeah. Creepy. But looks good. Looks good. I think it works well.
It's great.
And it doesn't stretch.
It's like a spider just wiggling its leg around.
It doesn't stretch too much, which I think is important.
Achieved its goals.
Yeah. Because Spidertron's Pentapod show a lot of code, Spidertrons now have a slightly new look. The legs are less stiff, more bendy, and frankly a little bit more creepy. They still have the clearly robotic entities, so I believe we managed to preserve their iconic look whilst also giving them a small facelift. So this one, I'm going to play the whole lot, but I just want to play this section. I think this section really illustrates, I think, the biggest change. So previously, spiders were, what's the word for a fear of water? Aquaphobic? Aquaphobic.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, they had an immense fear of water. Like, you had to push them up to the edge of any water mass, and then they'd eventually force their ways over. That's been changed. And I think it's a lot more natural now that they just, like, slide across the water, whereas previously...
They glide across the water confidently, rather than shrieking Taz hate water.
Yeah, rather than this weird, like, the body sits on the edge and doesn't really want to go over.
Sort of rubber bands off and then really just climbs it and then eventually springs across.
Yeah. So, this animation, I don't mind it. And I understand that, like, the legs probably more off than not paired previously. But you can definitely see that they're paired up in grips 1 and 2 now. And I think the only thing I'd like to see is, like, the legs have grips 1, 2, 3, 4. Or
1, 2, 3 or something.
Or, well, 1, 2, 3 would be difficult with 8 legs, but or even just occasionally a leg just, steps out of sync. Because spiders do that. They move organically. Whereas this is not organic.
Very rhythmic.
Yeah.
Something that comes up quite a bit on both the forums and Reddit responses is people much prefer the older look.
I don't mind. I really don't mind.
I don't mind.
The
stretching looks a bit weird in places. The skidding to a stop on the new one is a bit of an odd one, though.
Well, we had that in the old one as well.
Legs that sort of drag to stop. Yeah, it was probably less noticeable in the old one.
Nah.
Yeah.
Nah, hang on. Does this have an autoplay? Yeah, loop. That'll do. I go to there. Yeah, the old one has the skidding to the stop, and the new one still has the skidding to a stop. I think the new one is probably less skiddy. Yeah.
Probably because the legs are stretched out more when it's stopping, is why it's more noticeable.
Whereas the old one, they're sort of underneath the body and it's skidding to a stop there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe also the new one. The new one, where are we? The new one, it'll remove its legs whereas in the old one, it just sort of like drags them back to center.
Yeah.
Whereas the old one, you know, they're a little bit more stretched out, they're a little bit more bent, and then moves them in. Yeah. So behind the curtain. So this is Arendelle, and this is going to go into Well, they were trying to decide what to do with this for week's Friday Facts, and I made a joke I could make the Friday Facts. I'm making the last Friday Facts. Well, people really seem to like that idea, so here we are. And this, we're going to summarize an awful lot because
This is long.
it's long, it's interesting. Don't get me wrong, and I really like the peek behind the curtains, but it's awfully long, and it goes into more detail on how to make a video rather than the actual what's in Factorio 2.0. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, he says that this is behind the scenes, and you know, fans are really normally interested in this stuff, and I 100% agree. So, first off, we have the character.
This is very much down the alley of Factorio players reading this.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So we have the character loadout, so we can see exactly what he's carrying. We can see the armor, and we can see that the stupid reactor is 4x4. I was really hoping it'd be smaller.
No.
Yeah.
I had a feeling it was going to be like that.
I also still going to complain that the what are the belt immunity equipment? Belt immunity equipment
There's one.
is still 1x1. Like,
you don't have any problems with the player character carrying so many shield ones and battery ones?
Nah, not really. I'm assuming that's a tech limit.
No.
I'm assuming that's a tech limit.
It's
Yeah, tech limit or a design choice for the animation, because for the animation, you could just put anything in there.
Yeah. Well, also we can now confirm Power Armor 2 is the exact same size. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we knew that. Without quality. With quality, it does increase the grid size.
Yeah, but we never gotta. We gotta armor would increase with quality, but we also got Power Armor 2 is further down the tech tree than it was previously. So I was hoping its grid size would get an upgrade.
Nope.
Yeah.
It's already getting an upgrade with quality, as I say.
Yeah.
It's like 18 by 18 or something for
Yeah.
legendary. I forget.
5 extra tiles in both directions, which is massive. But that also
15
means
by 15.
yeah. What is it? It's 4. Yeah, it's 10 by 10. So yeah, it'll end up 15 by 15, which is a massive amount of space. Don't get me wrong, but it does mean that you need to make multiple of them and then re-roll them until you get enough equipment that you can make, well, your first level, then your second level, then your, yeah, there's going to be a long way till you end up with Legendary Power Armor Mark II. An awful long
The
way.
thing is that being 15 by 15, that's one tile short of 4 reactors in a row. So
Yeah.
you're going to have like legs and then something that's 1 by 1, like batteries or solar panels.
There'll be a mod for that. There'll be a mod for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Batteries would work. Just a row of batteries down the
Yeah,
side.
batteries will work.
Yeah.
Down the side, yeah. Down the bottom's going to be a bit of a problem.
No, somebody will make a sideways battery. Problem solved.
Oh yeah.
Like, why can't I rotate a
Kind of
battery?
rotator.
Why cannot rotate a battery? Like, it's an equipment grid. It's a 1x2, but there's nothing stopping it being a 2x1. It could just be a 2x1.
There you go.
Like,
Feature request.
feature request. Can I rotate like equipment grid items? Maybe legs
You know
should
what?
stay upright.
Next week, rotatable batteries.
Maybe legs should stay upright, but batteries definitely. Can I rotate them? And belt immunity equipment, can you use less power? Such a power hog. Anyway, as I was saying, so equipment grid, ammo and gun loadout. So, first thing he did is he recorded performance of fighting the enemies in the arena. Then applied that performance back to the scenario and ran it again. So he made a scenario, just the enemies, just him, and then captured all the player input, and then played it back, as in had the machine put in the player input to, in theory, do the exact same thing at the exact same time. But the enemies didn't do the same things. Some wanted different positions to attack at different times. The original capture version, there was one straight from the map. Another one spawned in just before the egg raft died. In the version of script-controlled character, instead of spawning a second strafer, an extra wriggler spawned. The Stomper joined the combat much earlier for some reason. The character got slowed by gliding wrigglers hitting different times, so the movement was off track, and eventually the character got stuck running a tree and was quickly stomped to death, which is a bit of a problem. And the good news is,
A little bit, yeah.
if you ran it multiple times, you get the exact same result. So the problem was It was just a difference in how the input recording and the recording code and the application code all interacted together. It was just enough to change the outcomes, and he just had to live with the solution. So, yeah, because he then...
The short answer is, as near as I can figure out, because the recording, the movement capture and playback is in engine, it's inside the influence of the world that is capturing it, which means that it influences itself.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes. It was software interacting with software. The important thing was, if he ran the same test again, he got the same result, which means it wasn't, because Factorio is deterministic, so you have to have... deterministic, yep. So you have to have the same result every time. So he did get the same result every time.
The only way to make it deterministic is to have the capture outside the deterministic space. So outside of the sort of game space, game universe.
Yes, yeah, because when you're...
And that's how you make, like, old games like Doom, Duke, how they made demos is the game is deterministic and it just replays a bunch of inputs, but the capture is outside of the game space.
Yeah, the capture's outside and the input is also outside. Yeah. So on the left is the first original, and then on the right is the outcome after he played the original input back in. And yeah, things went very, very, very different. Yeah. You might expect some sort of minor variation, but that's massive, and that's due to the wrigglers, the spawners, the flyers, and everything else slowing him down and changing the input, not when the input happens, but just how the input then affects the character there and then, and therefore then affects the output. Yeah. So
what do they call that? Butterfly effect, isn't it?
Yeah, butterfly effect.
That one completely changes the outcome. One small change changes the outcome.
Yeah, I've had videos like that where I've known exactly what's going to happen, and then some spanners happen 3 seconds into a video, and the outcome of the whole video has changed dramatically because something happened just randomly that time. And it's happened when, somebody's walked in 5 minutes into a video. I'm like, okay, well, there's no point. I'll just go back and start again. And something's happened different the second time around. Why they've happened different, I don't know. But welcome to game engines and recording and, doing this sort of stuff for a living. So my fix for this is to measure how far the character moved from its intended path. And if it stays too far from there, it's just forced to run in the direction to correct it. They're still slowed by whatever effects they have, but it means they can cut corners or skip, dodge maneuvers, and get back on track. Tracking the player's movement this way also gives me a nice idea to replace the camera system. Unlike previous videos where the camera is panning smoothly over the landscape, this video would follow the character's erratic movement. Our old Besnier control point system for camera movement would be a nightmare to match to character movement, especially if we needed to re-record, which is almost guaranteed. The new system takes the logged character positions for the performance capture and smooths out that pass with a few passes of a relaxed filter, essentially making each point the average of the point before and after. So we have a white being the character movement and a blue being a smooth path for the camera. And as you can see, it's close. It's just designed to be, roughly the same path, roughly. And definitely cut corners wherever possible to make sure that you sort of match overall speed, but not jerk the camera everywhere. And again, I've had to do this sort of stuff for not so good footage I've had from in-game. Especially when I'm doing pans and zooms and all sorts of things. But, so it gives nice smooth camera movement, but doesn't follow the action very well because it's always centered on the character. Then I had a secondary target system where an imaginary point could move to a targeted enemy and the camera would stay some percentage between the smooth pass and the secondary target point. This uses an imaginary point, not the enemy itself. So if the enemy dies and a new target is chosen, the camera doesn't suddenly jump. Instead, the imaginary point moves to a new target with a limited speed. An extra layer of controls can be determined how strong the camera is pulled to the second target. At the start of the video, the secondary target is the egg raft, but the influence is set to 0. So then we have the new one, which is, so we have the secondary path in orange. So this is what the camera is trying to drag itself towards. And then we have the actual results of the camera in white. So we can see, like, especially here with the player here in blue and the path over here, we can see the camera drags itself out towards the orange. Which is a it's a better way of keeping both the character and the item that the character is taking action on inside the camera view at the same time. And they both stay somewhat towards the center of the screen. It's a really good way of trying to show 2 points of view or 2 points of interest at the same time within the camera's point of view, or field of view. Yeah. And again, this is just down to video editing techniques and different things you need to do to pull off demo trailers. Demo trailers are number ones. Any sort of trailer or any sort of video scene of high action inside a game. All position timing are more important than usual because everything in combat is choreographed to the music. This is when things
Just to add a layer of complexity.
Yeah, when you start trying to add music, oh boy. The egg raft dies just as the beat kicks in. The strafer dies when there's a melancholic tone and the music starts to sound a bit more unhinged. And the stomper needs to die at a specific point in time. More on that later. So, along the way, I got to learn what would change the scenario result and how enemies would be affected. Enemies behave constantly as nothing changes. Swapping out a graphic is fine, but changing the graphic shifts is not. Moving enemy or adding or removing a tree, changing a tile, adding some ammo to the character, or even adding a decorative all break the result, and it can break in a lot of different ways too. The spawner egg raft may not spawn a unit, or they can be different unit type. One time it randomly spawned a stomper, so there were 2 stompers. That didn't go well. The scenario is part of a mod and a set of scenarios for videos. So to fix this problem, update the scenario mod so the spawners can only spawn riglets. So we just removed a variable, just hard removed it from the scenario.
Just slowly editing the game to make it do what you want.
Well, this is what you have to do sometimes. You need to cut out any variable that is not going to give you the end condition you need. And you don't need it to be able to spawn anything but riglets, because that's what you want in the video, so you just remove anything else. Any of the pentapods could just wander off in a random direction, so if combat starts, they might be out of the range of called help and just never show up in combat. So he tried to teleport them to the correct spot, but quickly found out you can't teleport the leggy enemies the rubber back to their previous position in 1 frame. Yes, you can't teleport a Spidertron.
Hilarious.
Well, it's something I found by Factorio mods. We've got different integration mods that can move players around, and we found when we teleported a spider, the spider body would move, and they'd still be attached to legs at the old position, but then 1 frame later, well, the body would get dragged back to legs. Because of course it would, because they're like 2 separate entities, and you can't move them to. So he got around that by just spawning in the enemy he wanted at the exact frame that he needed it to, just outside camera. So yeah, that solved that problem. But spawning leggy pentapods had a 50-50 chance of them having a left or right strafing bias. So remember previous Mojo where we read it, the 5-legged creatures, some of them count their legs up and others count legs down.
Yes.
Yes. So we come back to it.
There's another variable.
Well, that's how they get their left and right strafing bias. Like, they're always going to count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but some of them just then, so they're always going to strafe to say the right, but then to get some of them to strafe to the left, well, prefer to strafe to the left, they're going to count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because that'll give them the opposite bias. So yes, so it means they often go in a random direction. Direction was only consistent as long as nothing changes. The first most awkward problem because the direction impacts so much of the fight. There was never a great solution for this, but there are only 8 outcomes of left-right combinations for the 3-legged enemies. But really the most significant direction is the first strafer, with other consistently strafe safety nets. It was enough to make sure that the first strafer had a consistent direction by slowly adjusting its starting position into roll the direction I want. So we just kept spawning in until it just always went to the right or the left or whatever was needed by just shifting it over slightly. Yeah. And then it's just going to roll the direction he wants. Yeah. Even change the camera script code. That was the other one. Discover the worst offender and messing up scenarios simulation outcome. Even a change in the camera script code to go from preview mode to render mode for saving screenshots enough to break the scenario output because it's all happening in game. Just hit the record on OBS. You just save yourself so much hassle. Just do it external. External. So he spent all the time previewing and just to find out it was going to be a mess. So he found out he could fix that by just having it always render at 1 by 1 pixels. And then going through and setting everything back up exactly how he needed it in the first place. Yeah. The weapon's input capture records time to fire, position to fire at, and the gun to use. For regulars, okay, the aim assist chooses nearby enemies, so inaccuracy still works. For rockets versus strafers, though, the position would be so wildly wrong that some rockets would usually target a regular or often not fire at all, and only very occasionally attack the intended target. Fix this, I edited all the input data to remove all the rocket firing, instead uses my event system to fire a rocket at the safer directly in a way which was easy to change the times to make sure there was a strafer in range. So we just fudged it, entirely fudged it. Just fire at the thing.
So we now have a semi-autonomous system to do it.
That's what he's basically doing. He is, and this is
It's
just
gone from a demo to a semi-autonomous system.
Well, this is for 2 minutes of footage. This is the work involved to get 2 minutes worth of footage. And this is, again, this is why in movies and in trailers, you'll see so many cuts. And it's just because it is easier to fudge 3 seconds and then put in a cut and put in something else than it is to fudge 2 minutes. And that's why if you watch movies and you watch any movie that has a long, continuous, unbroken, single camera recording of a scene, they're amazing. They're amazing. Like watching 3 minutes,
Yeah, you always are.
is really good. But there's been a couple of movies that have done like, 3 minutes. 3 minutes is massive. But there's been a couple of done 5 minutes. There are a couple of just 60 seconds. 60 seconds without a camera change, an angle change, something to hide messes. Lots of movies are shot like 30 seconds at a time. They only use 6 seconds of that footage. And they might retake that twice and then move on to a different camera angle and then retake that 3 times. Yeah. Which brought him to the next problem? Flamethrowers. There's no locking target. So he used the first riglet, always for the first lot of wrigglers, which are all bunching in and coming in from the spawner. It just worked fine because he was making a funnel of fire and they just all need to walk into it. It generally worked. But at the end, he's trying to take out the Stomper. The Stomper needs to die before the end music, but it's not there before that. Nothing happens for a few seconds. For the aircraft, it was just shoot at the correct time. With the strafers down to the rocket timing, sometimes they're range, delayed for a few seconds, okay. Stomper death is really hard to control. In the performance capture, I got the timing just right with some practice, but the playback timing is always off. It's usually too late because extra wrigglers get in the way or the flamethrower misses more. Final fix was this, just to multiply the thing's health by 10 times and use the script to insta-kill it at the correct time. Health bars are hidden away. The approximate damage inflicted at the point is still roughly enough for it to die at the correct health, so it doesn't look wrong. Actual part of the strategy for spinning around the flamethrower's end is to ensure there's some fire doing some damage, so it doesn't die whilst not taking any damage. So the spin and win's not a thing, Mojo. Sorry.
Sadly.
Sorry. And yeah, he had to...
Yeah, it was cheating all along.
Yeah. But he had to also make a script to have the flamethrower target the Stomper's position for the first 2 seconds and then swap back to automatic capture input, just so it actually worked. Otherwise, it didn't work. Yeah. So then we have the original video, but enemy health bars are now shown. And we don't have health bars in Factorio. I realized this. In watching this video.
Sort of.
Well, we don't really. Not like this, with the bars.
Yeah, not quite like that, no. It's interesting how much the egg sac.
The egg sac heals. Oh yeah, massively. Yeah, it just...
it can heal itself over the PLD.
Well, it's only 1 PLD, so it's not a lot. But...
Oh yeah, it's not a lot of PLD, but it's still very fast.
Whoop. Pause. This is the bit that I didn't notice last week. The PLDs are not shooting anything in the air. Anything that's flying.
Yeah.
They don't shoot. I didn't realize. It was just
It
good.
actually makes sense because they're technically a projectile. They're not an actual glider.
Well,
Like a worm spit. Or a rocket.
I was
That's
sort
why
of,
they don't target it.
I was sort of hoping that I could shoot them with rockets or an SMG or something. Like,
It would
so,
be good to be able to, but yeah.
so that means I've just got to, once they're in the air, I've just got to accept that they're going to hit me in bad luck and hope to dodge them forever. Like, they have a wide turning circle, so potentially you can dodge them for quite some time. But also, no, Stompy Boy doesn't give a shit about laser either.
Yeah.
And doesn't really give too much of a shit. SMGs are definitely hurting, but we've got uranium ammo and level 8 weapon upgrades.
I mean, it is like, what, 20 times the health.
Yeah, but it also dies roughly at the right time anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's designed to die at roughly the right time. And then, well, we were curious. We were curious about what happens with larger enemies. And the results are very different. Also, remember how last week I mentioned that one of the Wrigglers was looking different? Turns out he's the next evolution. He has more brains. More brains hanging out the top. Nope, nope. This guy. They got more brains. They got more brains hanging out the top. They're bigger. They're meaner. They're nastier.
Yeah.
And that's the little one. And the rest are mediums. And then this explodes nothing but smalls. They're all the little ones.
We get a little sneak peek at the mediums.
Oh, the mediums I'm not worried about till the big guy shows up. Also, the flying dudes. The flying dudes are the different style as well. Like, they're bigger, they're fatter, they're... Where's a decent one? Like, these are very, very tiny. These are significantly larger. So again, it's a different sprite for the bigger ones, not just a color change. Biters do also generally get bigger, but I was sort of surprised with these little guys that they had a different sprite entirely. And you could definitely much more see the wings sticking out the side and them flapping about. The strafers don't look too bad in the medium variant. But the Wrigley guys are way, way worse. And then, holy shit.
And then, yeah, Chonky Boy here, filling the entire screen.
Holy shit. Like, he still fills the entire screen no matter what, but this is like green and a sort of little bit of a mossy color, and I sort of accept, you know, it's fine. His red bigger brother is he just looks more armored, a bit older, a bit more ancient. They've done really well. I really like the red one, but God.
That's not even the biggest.
I know. I can't wait. Stomp. Dead. Yes. So it plays out a little bit differently. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for this Friday Facts. But Strange Pen does definitely have a point. I've got an appreciation for games with wide enemy variety, even though I had the benefit of building on existing systems. Started to learn their capabilities, the limitations, quirks, and bugs of each one, then figure out how to make them play together nicely, which is a giant challenge. Each change needed to be carefully tested so other parts of the game didn't break or become unbalanced, along with the way there were many refactors, cleanups, bug fixes, and page notes. Even so, it's obvious the previous programmers built the systems with extensive performance and sometimes code health in mind, and that's enough of the creepy crawlies for last him for a lifetime. And he has to go check his Vulcanizer's factory, because he's been getting a bunch of alerts from time there. I'm sure hope nothing is disrupting my foundries. So the answer is, what's in Vulcananus? Yeah. What friends do we have to look forward there?
Frogs.
Not lava frogs. Not lava frogs. Definitely not lava frogs. But something. There's still time to put in the scorpion. There is still time to put in the scorpion.
Scorpion is relevant for
Lava planet
biome.
Yep. Vulcananus Scorpio. Yep. Also, yeah, definitely swimming biters. Because we have flying biters. It's confirmed that they're technically flying. They're short-range projectiles, but they fly. I still want proper flying biters, like, you know, the brain floaty tentacle thingy-majiggy bob from all those Friday Facts ago. But I want to have flying, I want to have swimming, and I want to have. I just want the scorpion because, you know, Corex's father found a
Be
scorpion.
incomplete without it.
It would be. It would be. It was something that was needed for 2.0. But I think that's it. I think that's it for this week's Friday Facts. Anything else you want to add, Mojo?
Nope, that is it.
Okay. Predictions on next week.
I don't know. It feels like we're going to get... Well, we got the technical one this time. We got the biters, the big one, the biters. Will we keep rolling with more biters? That's the real question.
Nah, we won't be biters. I am going to go not biters next week. Next week will be...
Next week will be just the shortest, most boring, but amazing quality of life thing.
It'll be a quality of life thing, or it'll be the last planet.
Or the last planet, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting to that point where we can fit in a teaser, and then an introduction to the last planet, and then leave it there prior to 2.0.
We are 2 months away, so yeah, the final planet I can see being exactly 1 or 2 months away, if at all.
But
I think. Yes.
oh, hang on. I also need to wonder the question. Like, we also have Satisfactory 1.0 released between now and then. Are they going to mention that?
There's another question.
Like, is that going to reach into the Factorio Friday Facts? Yeah, like, you know, release times and release schedules. I can see that week's being talking about release times and release schedules. Yeah. Because they delayed.
Even maybe just randomly, the 10th and 12th science packs that we haven't seen.
Oh yeah. So there's a lot to add. Therefore, I invite you back for next week for Friday Facts number 426. Either way, we're going to call it here. As always, thank you for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed, and bye.
Bye-bye.